Now, like most of you guys probably know at this point, I've been one of the main people in the commentary space covering the David, spelled d4vd story ever since it broke. And this is a story that's absolutely shocked a lot of people for obvious reasons, right? It's heavy, it's disturbing, it's tragic, and it's one of those stories where the details that came out actually made this case look way worse. Now, yesterday, like a lot of you guys know, I dropped a video on the David story. And in that video, I basically did what I always do when I cover stories like this. I broke it down, I went into the timeline, I went into what investigators are alleging, I went into the details of the case that have now come out after his arrest and his first-degree murder charge. And my intention with that video was very simple. It was to inform you guys. It was to take a story that a lot of people are hearing pieces of all over the internet and actually break it down in a way that was clear, factual, easy to follow, and honest. That's been my goal with the story ever since I started covering it back in September 2025. To inform, to explain, to translate all this information in a way that actually makes sense. However, unfortunately, YouTube didn't see it the same way, and my video got demonetized. Now, before I continue, I want to make something very clear, because I know how some people are going to take this conversation that I'm having right now. They're going to be like, you just care about money. No, this ain't about no damn money, man. Would it be nice to get paid for the work I put out? Of course. Imagine if you went to work and you put in a bunch of work and you didn't get paid. How would you feel? Exactly. I put a lot of time into the content that I produce. So yes, of course, it would be nice, but that is not the main issue here. Believe it or not, I've had a lot of videos get demonetized over my long journey on YouTube. And I've never really made a huge deal out of it because at the end of the day, I've always looked at it like this. Being on YouTube is not a right, it's a privilege. I still have my channel, I still have my voice. I didn't lose my channel. None of that stuff is happening. Everything is still there. We are all good. However, and this is where the bigger issue comes in. For this particular story, I think what happened here is a huge problem. And I'm going to explain why. Now let's get back to the demonetization. So YouTube initially demonetized my video, and then you can kind of like send like an appeal through YouTube. And I'll put that on the screen right now. I'll put it on the right side right here, okay? And it says something along the lines of like still under review. I'm sure you can see it. I'll highlight it right there. And so I sent that review, and then what happened is they essentially doubled down and they said, you know what? This video is not fit for advertisers, right? So basically my video was around 12 minutes and 22 seconds, and YouTube marked almost the entire video as unfit. So you get that yellow limited ad sign. So from around 3 minutes and 19 seconds all the way to 12:23, they basically marked almost the entire body of the video, the actual breakdown, the actual storytelling, the actual explanation, the actual case details. That's the part they marked. They limited the ads on that video, right? It's demonetized. And when you actually read what they say, they make it very clear that me and YouTube disagreed on the rating of the content. And then it says the issue is basically related to controversial topics. And then it gets even more interesting because this is what it says, right? These results have been rated as limited ads. A human reviewer rated your video as suitable for limited ads. As a reminder, your content should follow all policies, not just the ones identified. Timestamps are not exhaustive. So allegedly, a human being reviewed the video and still came to the conclusion that it should get limited. Fair. It is what it is, right? And for all the people watching this who may not create content or may not know somebody who creates content or may not understand how this side of YouTube works, understandable. Let me just explain a few things to you guys, right? Just like every platform and like every system and like every business, even though YouTube is great and it's absolutely changed my life, it has issues, right? And this is one of them. Because at the end of the day, if I as a creator cover a particular topic that may not be considered ideal for advertisers, or maybe not be considered safe for the overall system, or may not be the kind of thing that brands want to be attached to, then that means that I essentially don't get paid for that video. And here's the thing, right? There's pressure on the creator to present that information in a softer, safer, more watered down way just to get paid. And again, from YouTube's perspective, I understand why. I do. They're a business. They're working with all these advertisers, and so they gotta please them, right? And of course, there are a lot of different age groups on the platform. There are millions of different things they have to account for. I understand that. But I think there's also a lot that gets lost in translation. First of all, intention. The platform does not know me. It doesn't know who Blacky Speaks is, right? The algorithm is what I'm saying. It doesn't know me personally. The system doesn't know my heart. Doesn't really understand the human voice, like the spirit of the human, right? So it doesn't know my intention. It doesn't know the difference between somebody trying to exploit a story and somebody trying to explain a story responsibly. That's me. It doesn't know the difference between somebody being malicious and somebody actually trying to inform. It just sees content. It just sees keywords. It sees a topic, it sees a category, and then it reacts. Part of that is money, right? But another part is them trying to make sure certain content doesn't get pushed too heavily to certain audiences. So I understand that, and you understand that. Now for this particular David story, I'm sure you guys know the seriousness of this topic. I do not play about this conversation, okay? I know for a lot of people, this is just another viral story, entertainment, whatever. I know for a lot of people, this is just internet drama. And of course, you can tell by some of the people making videos on this topic. For a lot of people, this is just some crazy thing happening in celebrity culture. But no, that's not the case, man. I have reiterated time and time again that our focus always has to stay on the fact that a little girl lost her life. A 14-year-old girl lost her life in a brutal, deeply disturbing way. What happened to Celeste is horrible, absolutely horrible. And I cannot emphasize that enough. That has to stay at the center of this conversation always. However, and this is where things get really bad, there are factual details in this case. There are things investigators are alleging happened. There are details in the case that people are trying to understand. And in between those details and the general public who wants to understand what is going on, you have people like myself. And that's really what the creator becomes in moments like this. An interpreter, a translator, somebody who takes all these reports, all these clips, all these court details, all these headlines, all these allegations, all these public statements, and then translates them into something people can actually consume and understand. That's the role. And for me personally, as someone who generally sees himself as a writer at heart, my goal is to deliver the facts to you in the most fair, factual, responsible, digestible, clear, and grounded way possible. That's the job, to make it something worth consuming, something worth thinking about, something worth digesting. So that's our responsibility, that's our duty, that's our role, to share this information in a responsible way and factual, give the factual details. And this is where the issue comes in. Because if I as a creator take this job seriously, and I do, I need to be able to tell you exactly what's happening in the story. I need to be able to tell you what investigators are alleging. Of course, innocent until proven guilty, but this is what they are alleging right now. I need to be able to tell you what the timeline is. I need to be able to tell you what the motive is. I need to tell you what these investigators are saying that, in this case, allegedly David did. I need to be able to explain what happened in a way that actually helps you understand the seriousness of it. Why is that important? If everything has to be softened to the point where it no longer reflects the actual weight of what happened, then what are we left with? And this is where YouTube comes into play. Where YouTube, of course, have their own agenda. And that's natural. I respect it 100%. But the bottom line is this. If the translation I'm giving you has to be watered down in such a way it no longer upsets advertisers, then what YouTube is really saying is package the truth in a safer way. And if you don't, yellow sign. What does that actually communicate to the world? That's the issue. And if you don't understand why that's such a big problem, let me explain why. It's not because I'm gonna lose sleep over one video not making money. The bigger problem is that for a story like this, I think it is so important that people are fully in the knowing of what happened without sugarcoating it, without cleaning it up so much that the reality of it disappears. Because we all know what happened. A little girl lost her life. I'm not gonna stop saying that. The more details come out, the more time passes, the easier it becomes for things to get washed down. And I know there's a quote out there somewhere that I heard, something about history getting misinterpreted. A lot of you guys are way smarter than me, so please just put it in the comments, right? What I'm saying is, it's important to know what happened in the past. And the past was the current at some point. It's important to understand the reality of events because the things that happen in the world shape the future we end up living in. That matters. And this David story is one of the biggest stories in pop culture right now as we speak. And let's be real, right? Every major media outlet is covering the story. Every single one. Mainstream media is all over this story. But a lot of these billion-dollar media companies and traditional news outlets, at the end of the day, that's still traditional news. And a lot of times they don't add the necessary human context. They don't give you the story in a way that feels alive, that feels real. They don't always slow down and actually let the story breathe in the way a creator like myself can. And that's why creators like myself are so powerful, because there's something real about another human being sitting down and explaining something to you in real time that a giant media billion-dollar company just can't replicate in the same way, no matter how much money they have. And that's why a lot of you guys aren't even watching the mainstream coverage of the story. Tell me if I'm right or wrong. You're coming to creators like myself. You're coming here because it feels real and it feels more honest. This David story is going to continue to evolve. It's going to continue to change. More details are going to continue to come out. And as I stay on top of it and continue to cover this with you guys, I would hate for this to keep happening. Why? Because practically speaking, it means I have to package videos in a way that doesn't fully reflect the truth just to get paid. And I'm going to be blunt with you. For this particular story, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do that, man. It's very hard for me to sugarcoat the details of this case in a way that does not interfere with your ability to understand what was done to this little girl. That's hard for me. It's very, very hard for me. Case in point, I dropped a 30-minute documentary on Michael Jackson about 7 to 8 months ago. That video got demonetized too. And in my opinion, that was one of the most researched, most thought out, most surgically pieces of content that I've ever put out. And that video still got suppressed in the algorithm because that video was not monetized. And here's the thing with Michael Jackson. Michael Jackson is not here to tell his side of the story. There's a whole narrative around Michael that I'm not going to be going into right now. I'll be making plenty of videos of that. But he was not who a lot of these news outlets told us that he was.
When I made the documentary, there was a small part of that which contained a controversy concerning his relationship with other young people. But the truth is that he was never convicted of any crime. I never saw any wrongdoing myself.
And I know that because I did the research. Michael was not guilty on these charges, right? So if I can't share factual details about what Michael Jackson, the greatest musician of this freaking planet, if I can't share factual details about what Michael went through in his life without getting punished for it, then yes, that makes me question things. And yes, that lowers my faith in the system a bit. And it also makes me ask another question in my head. How come media companies can put out accusations in terms of content, monetize it, make millions and millions of dollars off that, but when somebody tries to come back and present the fuller picture in a responsible way, that gets limited? Do you understand the concern here? Because my fear is that this leads to a situation where over time, the stories that survive are the ones that are the easiest to monetize, not the ones that are the most truthful. And that would be a very bad direction to go in, because we all know YouTube is the new television now. And this place right here, YouTube, is where people come to understand the world. This is where people come to understand culture, to make sense of all the chaos that we're going through in this world. This is where people come to understand major public stories. So if this form of media starts going in a direction where important, serious, real world stories have to be watered down just to survive, what does that lead to? That's the concern here. So at this point, when it comes to the David story, I'm just gonna cover it for the love of the game. Why? Because the job I have here is to deliver this information properly to you. And to me, that matters way more than whether or not those specific videos get me paid. However, it does mean the reach on those videos won't be what it could be. And that does bother me. And here's why that bothers me. Because that basically means I'm getting punished, not deleted, not silenced, but I'm getting punished in reach for telling you guys what investigators are alleging happened in this case. What you have to understand though is that when a video gets limited in this way, it literally hurts the reach, which means if I'm telling the truth about what happened, then the truth is not getting out. That's a problem. Now, I don't expect YouTube to change. I really don't, because my father once told me, don't expect the world to change for you. You have to change to fit into the world, son. But at the same time, I'm sharing this in hopes that somebody, I don't know, somebody in a position to actually see this, somebody with influence at maybe, I don't know, YouTube, takes this seriously. I really don't care if they make that video green or whatever. I really don't care. I'm talking about a systemic change, not an individual change, because this affects everybody, not just myself. And this is why it's a problem. If we can't fully communicate the reality of what's happening, then what kind of version of the truth are we left with? That's a question I have to you. And what does that turn into over time? I just want to inform you guys, my folks, I want to inform you guys about what's actually going on in this world without getting penalized for it. And I want the world to understand the reality of what's being alleged in this case. That's the concern. And unfortunately, there's a price to telling these stories properly now. And the price seems to be reach and how far the truth actually gets to travel. I just wanted to share this with you guys, man. But I could be wrong. Y'all let me know in the comment section about what you think. And of course, I'll catch you guys on the next video. Peace. I'm out.